The screen flickered to life, casting an eerie glow that barely illuminated the room. It was as if the TV itself was a portal to another dimension, one filled with shadows and whispers. Darkness bled into the room, consuming every corner. The shadows seemed to have a life of their own, creeping and spreading like a living entity, eager to engulf everything in their path. A chill snaked down my spine, leaving a trail of goosebumps in its wake. This was it. The moment I had been both dreading and anticipating. The challenge was about to begin, and there was no turning back now. I was trapped, committed to a 4K horror marathon that promised to push my sanity to its breaking point. The high-definition images were so vivid, they felt almost real, as if the horrors on the screen could leap out and drag me into their nightmarish world. Little did I know, this was more than just a movie marathon. It was a test of endurance, a battle against my own fears. Each scene was a new trial, each jump scare a fresh assault on my nerves. This was a descent into the abyss of fear itself. The hallway on the screen seemed to stretch endlessly, a metaphor for the journey I was about to undertake. Every step down that staircase was a step deeper into my own psyche, where my darkest fears lay in wait. My heart pounded a heavy rhythm against my ribs, each beat a reminder of my vulnerability. I could feel the pulse in my neck, a rapid throb that matched the escalating tension in the room. The air crackled with anticipation, or maybe it was just the static charge of the screen. The white noise seemed to fill the room, amplifying the sense of unease that hung in the air like a thick fog. I couldn't be sure. One thing was clear, there was no turning back. My grip on the armrest tightened, knuckles white with tension. I was determined to see this through, no matter what horrors awaited me. My eyes glued to the screen, I braced myself for the onslaught of terror that awaited. Let the nightmare begin. The first movie started, its opening scene a harbinger of the dread to come. Each frame was a new layer of fear, each sound a new note in the symphony of terror. I was ready, or at least I hoped I was. The challenge had begun, and there was no escape. The first rule of any horror movie marathon? Set the mood. Blackout curtains transformed my living room into a tomb. Candles flickered, casting dancing shadows that morphed into monstrous shapes at the edge of my vision. A bowl of popcorn sat within reach, each kernel a salty promise of delicious fear. My phone lay silent, silenced not by choice but by the sheer terror of missing a single horrifying second. The air hung heavy with anticipation. I was ready, or at least I thought I was. The first film ripped into my senses with a cacophony of screams and the metallic tang of blood. Images, crisp and brutal in their 4K glory, seared themselves onto my retinas. I felt every slash, every gut-wrenching twist of the plot as if it were happening to me. My pulse quickened, my breath hitched in my throat. Fear, delicious and terrifying, began to weave its way through my veins. This was just the beginning. The night was young, and the horrors were just getting started. As the second film began, a different kind of fear took hold. It wasn't the kind of fear that makes you jump out of your seat or scream at the top of your lungs. No, this was a more insidious fear, one that crept into your mind and settled there, refusing to leave. Gone were the in-your-face scares of the slasher flick. Instead, the film wove a tapestry of unease, each scene meticulously crafted to unsettle and disturb. The empty streets and abandoned houses were not just settings. They were characters in their own right, each with a story to tell. In their place crept a creeping dread, a slow burn of terror that gnawed at the edges of my awareness. The fog in the forest seemed to move with a life of its own, and the empty hallways echoed with the footsteps of ghosts long gone. Every creak, every rustle, every shadow seemed to whisper secrets I was not meant to hear. Shadows danced in the periphery of my vision. They moved with a grace that was almost hypnotic, drawing my attention even as I tried to look away. The flickering lights in the corridor created a strobe effect, making it hard to distinguish reality from illusion. Whispers, barely audible, seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. They spoke in a language I couldn't understand, yet their meaning was clear. I was not alone. The cracks in the old walls seemed to form patterns, almost like runes, telling a story of ancient horrors. I felt a presence, unseen but palpable, watching me from the darkness. It was as if the very air had weight, pressing down on me, making it hard to breathe. The shadowy figure in the corner seemed to shift and change, never fully revealing itself, but always there, lurking just out of sight. My heart hammered in my chest. Each beat was a drum, a reminder of my own mortality. The terror was not just in my mind, it was physical, a visceral reaction to the unknown. The person in the dark room, their face contorted in fear, was a mirror of my own emotions. My eyes darted around the room, searching for the source of the whispers. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat, every corner a potential hiding place for something unspeakable. The dim light played tricks on my vision, making it hard to tell what was real and what was imagined, but there was nothing there. Or was there? The creaking door seemed to open of its own accord, and the shadowy figure disappeared into the darkness, leaving me questioning my own sanity. Was it all in my head, or was there truly something lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike? Section 5. A Feast for the Senses. The beauty of 4K horror is its ability to completely immerse you in its gruesome world. Every detail, from the splatter of blood to the glint of a killer's eye, is rendered with horrifying clarity. I could practically taste the metallic tang of blood in the air. The stench of decay filled my nostrils, making my stomach churn. The screams of the victims echoed in my ears long after the scenes had ended. My senses were under assault. I was living the nightmare, every horrifying second of it. Section 6. The Descent into Madness. As the hours ticked by, a strange thing began to happen. The line between reality and the nightmare on the screen blurred. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves outside my window sent shivers down my spine. I found myself jumping at shadows, talking to characters on the screen as if they could hear me. My mind, saturated with horror, was starting to unravel. The marathon was taking its toll. Was I losing my grip on reality? Section 7. When reality blurs. Sleep became a distant memory. The images from the movies, vivid and grotesque, haunted my waking hours. I saw monsters lurking in the reflections of windows, heard whispers in the hum of the refrigerator. My own reflection in the mirror startled me. My eyes were bloodshot, my face pale and drawn. I looked like a character in one of the films, a victim on the verge of a breakdown. Was this what it meant to truly be terrified? To have the barrier between reality and fantasy shattered by fear itself? Section 8. The Physical Toll of Terror. The physical effects of the marathon were just as real as the psychological ones. My body ached from being curled up in a ball of tension for hours on end. My stomach churned, my appetite replaced by a constant wave of nausea. The lack of sleep left me feeling drained, my reflexes shot. I was a jittery mess, easily startled by the slightest noise. The horror marathon was pushing me to my absolute limit. Section 9. Finding solace in the darkness. And yet, amidst the terror, I found a strange sense of solace. There was a perverse comfort in knowing that I wasn't alone in my fear. That somewhere out there, in the darkness beyond my living room, others were experiencing the same thrills, the same chills running down their spines. We were united, however briefly, by our shared love of horror, by our willingness to confront our deepest fears in the safety of our own homes. In that shared terror, I found an unexpected sense of community. Section 10. A Survivor's Tale. As the final credits rolled on the last film, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. It was as if a heavy burden had been lifted from my shoulders, a burden I had carried for hours, through each spine-chilling scene and heart-pounding moment. The marathon had been a test of endurance, both physically and mentally. And now, as the lights came up, I could finally breathe easy. The screen went dark, and the real world slowly seeped back in. The transition from the eerie, haunting atmosphere of the films to the familiar, comforting reality was almost surreal. My eyes adjusted to the light, and I blinked away the remnants of the nightmarish visions that had danced before me for so long. It was a strange feeling, like waking up from a particularly vivid dream, where the lines between fiction and reality had blurred. The shadows retreated, the whispers faded away. The theater, once filled with the sounds of screams and eerie music, was now silent, save for the soft murmur of fellow survivors sharing their experiences. The eerie atmosphere that had gripped us all was dissipating, leaving behind a sense of camaraderie and shared triumph. We had all faced our fears together, and now we could finally let go of the tension that had held us captive. I had survived. My body ached, my mind was exhausted, but I had faced my fears and emerged from the darkness, forever changed by the experience. Each film had been a journey into the unknown, a test of my courage and resilience. And now, as I sat there, reflecting on the ordeal, I felt a sense of accomplishment. I had pushed my limits, confronted my deepest fears, and come out the other side stronger for it. The marathon may be over, but the memories, the terror, the sheer adrenaline rush of it all would stay with me long after the last drop of fake blood had been spilled. The images of the nightmarish creatures, the heart-stopping moments of suspense, and the collective gasps of the audience would be etched in my mind. It was an experience that had tested my limits and left an indelible mark on my soul. As I walked out of the theater, I knew that I would carry the lessons learned and the strength gained from this night with me, always. Section 11. Join the Horror Hub. So are you brave enough to embark on your own horror movie marathon? To test your limits and stare fear in the face? If so, I dare you to dive into the world of 4K horror. But be warned, once you enter this world, you may never want to leave. And be sure to subscribe to our channel for more spine-chilling content, terrifying tales, and horror-filled adventures. We'll be waiting for you in the dark.